The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From Radio Beacon to Radio Beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The Commerce Department says U.S. GDP, the broadest measure of the economy,
fell 9.5% in the second quarter.
It means the economy was 9.5% smaller at the end of the quarter than the beginning of the quarter.
Which made for an annualized rate of 33% nearly.
The sharpest decline in U.S. history, nearly 4 times worse than the peak of the financial crisis in the fourth quarter of 2008.
Now, we expected this. We were all at home. Stores were closed, but it is still a staggeringly large number, the biggest ever.
At the same time, jobless claims rising by another 1.4 million people.
That's the second week in a row that the number went up.
And before that, the number hadn't risen since March.
Yes, we've seen the number come down significantly since back in late March, but we're plateauing right now.
Fulfilling epidemiologist warnings that reopening too soon would backfire economically.
But these talks for another stimulus package on Capitol Hill seem to be going nowhere.
2 months after Democrats put forward their plan, Republicans still can't agree on what they want. The president is now throwing cold water on his party's own plan.
So this is a complete mess, as much of a stalemate as I have seen in my time covering Capitol Hill.
And the bottom line is that these $600 weekly unemployment payments that have been helping 30 million Americans are expiring, and it is likely to be weeks before Congress is able to reach a deal to restart them.
Oh, hi, everybody. It's Friday, you bastards. Oh, yay. Do you see this? Is this the coolest thing ever? I told you. His name's Douglas McCarthy, and Douglas McCarthy made me this mug that says, "It's Friday, you bastards." And then on the back, he has the entire show open. The entire show of it. Mary had a little lamb. The fault, dear Brutus, is that all men are created equal to the magnificent mosaic that is America. From Radio Beacon to Radio Beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America. Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there? It's a figment of your imagination. It's the Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind. Is that the coolest? And he wrote me a really nice note, so I just wanted to give him a shout out. He wrote, "Dear Randi, I've been a long-time listener and subscriber to your podcast. You give me comfort during these difficult times." Oh, these are trash times. You're right. He said, "I wish you good health and happiness to you and your crew." Douglas McCarthy. Yay.
I don't know if you noticed, that is an addict-size cup of coffee, by the way. That is for addicts only. That is giant.
So I had it at home this morning, okay, and I was showing Sean, like, my mom's 90th birthday is next week, so I was showing him all the stuff I'm making her for. She doesn't listen, so I could tell you what I'm getting her. She has a balcony on her apartment, but the apartment that it's 3 miles from my house, right? We put her over there. But anyway, so the balcony, when she moved in, was not completed. And it's just been completed. And it's brand new. And so she knows me and my yard fetish, okay? I mean, if you look at my Instagram account, it's pretty much all I ever Instagram is me sitting there on a Friday night burning incense. That's kind of that in my Corona premiere with like 2 carbs in it. That's what I tweet. That's what I Instagram. I don't know, like what to do on Instagram. So I send those pictures. Anyway, my mother knows my fetish for this, and she wants me to create something for her. So she said to me, "Can you just go get me, I think you go to Big Lots, and..." Swear to God, this is what she sounds like. It's the Trump New York thing. Trump does it too. And, okay, just go to Big Lots and get me, I don't know, a folding chair, something so I could sit outside. Now, I want you to know it's like 2,000 degrees outside, and we're going to have some sort of a brush with a hurricane this weekend. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been like building this fabulous balcony vignette, as she would call it. I need a vignette. So like I got her a little planter that's shaped like a bicycle, and I'll put some, there are these awesome gingers out now for those of you who grow. It's called curcuma. Really what it is turmeric. and the flower of turmeric. It's called curcuma longa. It's gorgeous, and you get babies. It's like total instant gratification. This plant grows like really fast. Anyway, so I'm going to get her one of those, and I'm going to get her something, tropical that needs no love whatsoever. Anyway, and then I made her a little succulent garden, and I purchased these little heads. They're so cute. They're just little heads, and they come in all that. You could do a Buddha, you could do a girl, a boy, whatever you. So I bought these little heads, and I put, you put the succulents in the head, and it becomes hair. So I was showing it to Sean this morning, all the stuff that I'm making her, because Sean is in Virginia, so we Zoom every morning. That's how we organize the show together. But anyway, so I said to him, "You got to see this mug that this guy Doug McCarthy sent me. This is it," and I said, "It's as big as my head." Which is good because now I don't have to refill or replenish, but I probably will have to, visit the ladies twice as often. So I just wanted to say thank you. When people send me things like Doug in Denver sends me, masks and gloves and all kinds for my family. He sends me enough for the whole freaking family. It's pretty amazing. We have pot growers also who they used and still do. They use KN95 masks when they grow. They're not N95s, they're KN95s. They're the second best mask in the world. And they send them to me too for the family, And so I just wanted to say, you guys are amazing. So if I die in the hurricane this weekend and the corona just sweeps on in because nobody has any place to go except, to somebody's house with a generator, because it's 9,000 degrees here is what it is. I just wanted to say it's been great. It's been really great. Anyway, the economy. They're calling it contractions. They're saying the economy is having contractions. I mean, the contractions are so severe that I think it's going to give birth to a Great Depression. I really do. I think we're on the verge. Because the worst economic contraction, and you say that to a woman and she's like, you have no idea. And you didn't want to come out. This is what I have to listen to every birthday. But it's the worst economic contraction in the history of the United States. So some people are running ads. I can't tell you which group it is because there's so many of them, and the ads are fabulous. Vote Vets has a group of ads. Midas Touch has a group of ads. Really American has a group of ads. Obviously, Lincoln Project, who, I don't trust. I treat them like Hyman Roth. I've told you that. This is how I think of the Lincoln Project. You could do business with Hyman Roth. You could respect Hyman Roth, but you can't trust Hyman Roth, okay? So that's how I think of it. Anyway, so I don't know who put it out, but they put out a Reagan ad asking that famous question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? So the answer is probably not even 4 decades ago. Am I better off? Not even 4 centuries ago. Am I better off, right? And so Trump knows this. And that is why he is now using, and this is his campaign. This is it. It's the same one as last time, just to refresh, that the election is going to be illegitimate, that it's rigged, because he knows what we know. And that is, if people answer that question, are you better off today than you were pre-Trump 4 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 4 decades ago, or 4 centuries ago? The answer is clearly no. Okay, no. And so he knows he's going to lose. And the whole strategy now is the same as before. Call into question the election itself. Say it's rigged. Say it's because the U.S. economy dropped 32.9%. And that, my friends, is not just a contraction. That is a miscarriage. And everybody knows it.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
this additional benefit of $600 a week on top of the smaller state-based portion. It expires today. Many folks already received their final check. I mean, that's a 2/3 drop in unemployment assistance for millions of unemployed American workers. Sad for them, and I'm sure many of them are watching. Hugely impactful. Tell us what the effect is more broadly on the economy of removing, in effect, that financial stimulus.
This is such an important point. It's devastating and irresponsible that we've got to this point. And it's not just 60%. You know, for some people, this is going to mean a 90% plus drop in the benefits they've been receiving. The average amount of money people have been getting is around $920 a week. So deduct $600, $320. If you're in Oklahoma, it could be more than 90%. The average benefits there is $44. How can we be at this point? Let me tell you what I think we should be doing here. Of course, the Democrats are saying extend those $600. The Republicans want to cut them and reshape it, which is stupid, quite frankly. We should continue to pay people $600 a week and let them go back to work if they can. Let me explain. We have 30 million people in this country collecting benefits right now. We have job openings of around 5.5 million. So even if by some miracle you could get 5.5 million people back to work in those jobs, you've still got tens of millions of people out of work. I think it's good that people are spending more money now than they were before because, to your point, this is holding up economic growth. And if 2/3 of people are earning more today than they were pre-COVID, then we should be asking what a living wage looks like in the United States. Because quite frankly, these people weren't earning enough.
Thank you. And the $600 represents $15 an hour for a 40-hour work week. That is the genius of the Democrats sending out $600. Why $600? Why $600? Now, here's the dirty, dirty, dirty little secret. The Republicans don't see $600 going out the door and continuing till the end of the year is a good thing for Donald Trump's reelection hopes and dreams. The Republicans don't think Donald Trump is worth it. That is why they aren't doing it. They don't think about you, and they don't think about food lines, bread lines. They don't think about the COVID lines. They don't think about the lines, that we have to wait in for any of the things that we now have to wait in line for, okay? They don't think about any of that. You could sit in an ambulance now for 10 hours waiting to get into an ER in some places in this country because of this pandemic, right? They don't think about that. They don't think about you. They think about politics. They think about their own preservation, their own power. And Mitch McConnell and 20 Republicans, Mitch McConnell is on the ballot. The other 20 who he can't wrangle, they aren't on the ballot. And they don't think Trump is worth it. So they don't want to give you an extension, 32 million people, an extension of the $600 federal payment in addition to your state unemployment benefit. Now, I was reading articles about women, especially women and children, because this is who gets hit the hardest all the time. And there's a woman in one of the articles in the homework, I don't know if it's the New York Times article or if it's the Washington Post article or if it's whatever, but a woman literally without the $600, her entire benefit is $193 a week with 2 children. Mitch McConnell doesn't care about her. Mitch McConnell doesn't care. Rand Paul couldn't care less. None of these seriously demented GOP people, because when you think of the $600 is the best thing for Trump. It is the best thing they could possibly do for Trump. And you know how Trump knows this is Trump is telling Mitch McConnell that Mitch McConnell's #1 priority for passing any stimulus package, Mitch McConnell's #1 priority is for business. We went over the liability that he wants to extend to businesses so that all they have to do is post on the kitchen wall that they're looking into how to protect their workforce from COVID. That's all they have to put up on the wall, is that we're considering our options. Meanwhile, you come back to work. that relieves them of any liability. However, if you should get sick and you decide that you got it at work, you figure out you got it at work because all you're doing is going to work and going home, going to work and going home. You're not coming in contact with any other people. And you say that you got sick because you were forced back to work and they didn't protect you from COVID. They were only considering their options. Well, then they can turn around and sue you for filing a false claim. That's Mitch McConnell's number one priority for business, not for people, right? And the White House said today they're not really into that. Trump said he couldn't understand why businesses would want liability shields. Probably because what Donald Trump does is lie. And he's wondering why businesses can't just lie. Anyway, the White House has said that they're willing to make a deal that does not include the liability shield for employers. Because he wants that money to go out the door. No matter what, he just wants it out the door. It's the best thing for him. I'm telling you right now, the Republicans left. They left yesterday. They're not coming back until 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. And there is no deal, no agreement. The unemployment benefits have run out. The last checks went out the door. The moratorium on evictions is over. It's over. And they just don't care. And that's what I'm saying to you. If the question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago, had to be answered today, if the election were held today, Donald Trump knows he would lose. He knows that. Every economist worth their salt has said the Congress and the president, they need to step in a big way to prevent the damage from this pandemic becoming permanent. Every economist, and I'm telling you, for hundreds of years into the future, whenever people look at a chart, the chart that I just played for you, or on my Twitter feed, there's a beautiful chart. It came from NPR with a link to the official stats, okay, on this economy. But if they don't act in a big way, these losses are going to become permanent losses, meaning restaurants will never reopen, gymnasiums, people who have gyms, they will never be able to reopen. All kinds of businesses, small businesses, toy stores and family pet stores and things like that. They will, if we don't intervene in a big way, meaning consumers have money to spend, then we enter this death spiral, because our economy never trickles down. It bubbles up. It's a consumer-driven economy. Every single time I have to tell you that. It pains me because the Republicans are always going to argue, no, when the rich have money, it trickles down to you. Bull crap. When consumers don't have money, this is what the economy does. It contracts. It contracts and gives birth to its oppression. And every economist is saying, get the money out the door, Junior. Get the money out the door. The Republicans don't want to get the money out the door because they don't want to save Donald Trump's presidency. And I swear to God, I think I'm the only person on this planet that figured that out. But that's the truth.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The job numbers we have are actually well over a month out of date, and every indicator we have says that the recovery has stalled. Basically the best we got was early July, and then the explosion of pandemic, the explosion of new cases, the sharp rise in deaths has also brought the economy to a sharp halt.
Yeah, let's dig in a little bit more, because second quarter GDP is expected to be the worst quarter on record. Yeah. Last week, unemployment benefits rose again for the first time in 4 months. Is the president's rosy economic outlook, is it at this point just magical thinking?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe wishful thinking is a better. But go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Wishful. I mean, but the delusions are easier in a way because we live in COVID time. Things change very fast. So we had the most horrific downturn in the history of the United States early this year. Then we had 2 months in which we bounced back about a third of the way, and those are the numbers, the official numbers. But turns out that a job number for June is actually a job number for the second week of June, and everything since mid-June has been pretty bad. And so he's living. I really have no idea whether anyone around him is telling him that, the next job number is not going to be good, and in fact, states are hurting. And of course, the states that opened up fastest and where deaths from COVID-19 are exploding are the ones where the economy is going backwards.
Unbelievable. All right, Ken in Maryland.
Hello, hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. Why do taxpayers have to pay an extra $600 for people on unemployment? Number two, why are teachers still collecting a paycheck from the American people? Number three, why are politicians still collecting a paycheck? Since you guys want to defund the police, why are these guys still collecting or still getting police escorts?
Okay, let's do this in order. Unemployment is insurance. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It's been paid in by the employer. It's also
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
not an extra $600 though.
They pay up to they pay 7% on the first $7,000. They do get rebates though. They do get
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And they
so
get
unemployment is insurance. That's number one. Number two, if you don't give people money in a consumer-driven economy, which is what we have here, then we go into a death spiral. And once the death spiral starts, it just
no. That's where Democrats take place.
No, that's
yes, ma'am.
Wait, can I? You asked me 3 questions.
Yes.
I'm only up to question number 1.
Okay, go for it.
I'm only on the first. I got a ways to go.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you take money out of the consumer's hand, 32 million people, it spirals more job losses. More job losses lead to less consumer spending. That leads to,
Democrat
that leads
down cities and states.
That leads
Democrats
to that leads to
fire
hello
on cities.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
That leads to more business closures. That leads to more job losses. That's number 1.
So do rioters setting fire in
hello. You asked me 3 questions. I'm trying to answer them in order.
But you can't
and
answer
then
them
you could
correctly.
talk. And then you could. I did answer them correctly. We have an economy where 70% of GDP.
Under Trump, the economy
we
was
have
the best
a country. Please, are you deaf or what is your malfunction? That you just ask people questions, but you're asking them rhetorically. You don't want an answer.
Sure, I do.
Well, then be quiet.
Instead of
just be quiet and stop changing.
Why don't you give me a good answer?
I'm trying, but you keep changing the subject like people do when they don't like the answer.
Oh, I love your answer, but they're just not correct.
So, 2/3 of this economy is not consumer driven.
Sure, it is.
Then why would you?
90%
of
this economy is consumer.
No, 70.
Okay,
70.
Half of it is
70% of the economy. 70% is consumer driven.
Half of it is drawn by China corruption.
Oh my God.
Yes, ma'am.
70%.
That's the facts.
That's not true. 70%.
Sure, it is. Look at Nike.
Okay, be quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
2/3 of this economy, 70% is consumer driven. It's you spending
yes,
money.
I said that.
No, you said 90. 70%.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't put money in the hands of people to pay their rent or to buy socks or to buy food, then the economy goes into a death spiral. So you would want to.
You're wrong.
So you would want to.
Because there are so many groups all across this country where you can go get food, you can go get clothing, and you can go get whatever you want.
How does that drive the economy?
Okay, you're talking. Okay, the economy and what you just said is 2 different things.
No, they're the same thing. I am talking about the consumer-driven economy that we have here in these United States.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying because there are food banks, people don't need to spend money. How does that support an economy?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
You were just referring.
Okay, number two, why do teachers still get paid? Because they're teaching virtually. They are still holding classes, moron. And as far as pay, yeah, they are. Yes, they are. Teachers are still teaching. And nobody wants to defund the police. They want to repeal and replace. I don't know how else to say it. Repeal all these duties that the police have to answer mental health calls, to answer missing cats in the tree, to answer domestic violence, and give it to people who have experience handling drug overdoses with Narcan, not police with weapons. Psychological, your kid is bipolar and he's having an episode. Have a psychologist or a psychiatrist respond to those calls. That's the guy. We're trying to limit the contact between the police and people they are not trained or geared to help. That's what the issue is. It makes perfect sense if you think about the addiction in this country. Why do you have armed officers responding to someone who's ODing? You shouldn't. You should have somebody who works in addiction and recovery responding so that they don't have a weapon. They got Narcan. That's the issue. Oh my God. We have the worst economy on record. 100 years from now, people are going to look at this chart and they're going to say, oh, that was the Trump disaster. Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe we won't even be here because of global warming, because that's the Trump disaster. I don't know. Stop asking me questions and then changing the subject. By the way, I heard something about riots and burning. Those are interlopers. Those are instigators. They're the Proud Boys. They're white supremacists dressed up like Antifa. We played you videos of the Umbrella Man who started this thing in Minneapolis at the AutoZone. He was a white supremacist. We know that the Wendy's that burned down in Atlanta was lit on fire by 2 white women. So cut the crap, okay? Open your freaking eyes.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Almost every other country on earth is doing far, far better than the United States, except for Brazil, whose president has followed President Trump's policies. But we have 153,000 dead. Canada, our next door neighbor, has less than 9,000. We have 17 times the number of deaths from it. China, which of course is much larger than the United States, has lost 4,661 people.
Wow.
We've lost 153,000 people. Our rate of death is 36 times higher than China, and on and on. Do we have the financial resources and the scientific expertise in America to do what other governments have done to bring the infection rate down to something manageable so the end is in sight of this nightmare?
I believe we do have the tools, and certainly there's been a considerable degree of financial investment.
So what is the difference? Why are all of the other countries defeating the disease and we're not? Why do we not have a plan, a strategy for victory to win, to beat COVID-19?
Well, I believe I addressed that in not only my opening statement, but also in response to the question of the congressman. And that is that when you look at the comparison between Asia and Europe, as is shown by the chairman's poster up there, that when they shut down to the tune of about 95%, getting their baseline down to tens or hundreds of cases per day. So whereas when we did it, we got it down, but unfortunately, our baseline was 20,000 a day.
All right, so we're getting somewhere, but would you agree with me that the critical difference is either the presence or the absence of social cohesion and political leadership to actually develop a plan, execute it, and stick to it?
I think there was such a diversity of response in this country from different states that we really did not have a unified bringing everything down.
Yeah. And that's why we are where we are. And that's why people need to have money out the door. And that's why, the GOP's reaction to this is, no, we want to help businesses some more. We want to give them complete liability. And we want to, $200 is what we want to give people. $200. I mean, and these people, 32 million people, there are 5 million job openings. Seriously. There are 5 million job openings, and there are 32 million people without jobs through no fault of their own. No fault of their own. They work in restaurants, the travel industry. They work in hotels. They work in, all kinds of, small businesses that have to shut down because this president refused to have a cohesive, coherent plan. The numbers from China are staggering, right? So you have the China virus, which, the racist president likes to call this thing, which, New York was infected by a European strain of COVID-19, just saying. But China had literally 4,000 deaths, and there are 1 billion people. 1 billion people, 4,000 deaths. The United States has 325 million people. And we've had 152,878 deaths as of this minute that we know. It's because the President of the United States refused to have a plan, refused tests from the World Health Organization when his CDC failed miserably at creating a test. We had a 5.5-week delay in creating tests. And then we started testing, 1,000 people a day. There is a need in this, Wuhan in China. They had they tested the entire city of Wuhan, the entire city, and when they had a little outbreak after a second, outbreak, they tested 11 million people in 1 week. In 1 week, we have had COVID for 6 months. And Donald Trump is bragging that he's done 45 million tests. In 6 months, they tested 11 million people in 1 week. That's what it takes. They contact traced the people that came up positive, and those people were quarantined for 14 days. We did nothing like that. Our hospitals are inundated. Our hospitals, and what about the nurses and doctors? They've been working at warp speed for months now. For months. You can't reason with a Trump supporter. You just can't, because whenever you tell them the truth, they shift to riots, or they'll shift to this, or they'll shift to that. Meanwhile, I just wanted to say, the feds left Portland. I don't know if they're out of Portland, but the feds are nowhere to be seen by protesters in Portland. And last night, Portland had a completely peaceful protest evening. The president doesn't really like that Portland had a peaceful protest last night. President is still agitating. He likes the chaos. He likes the violence, personally. He just does. And, while he's threatening to cancel elections, he's also threatening that the next time there's any problem, the next time he sees a problem, he's going to call the National Guard. And the National Guard, they'll be able to go forward where the BORTAC unit, these tactical, you want to defund something, defund these tactical units inside Border Patrol. These guys are killers. They are literally murderers. They are the most violent, racist group of people I have ever seen on American soil. Really, never saw anything like it. But anyway, Portland had a completely peaceful night last night. President Trump doesn't like that result, so this is his threat.
Homeland Security have done a fantastic job. They went to Oregon a little more than a week ago. The place was a mess. The city, Portland, was just a disaster.
It was fine before they got there.
You see it, and a lot of people weren't reporting it right. They tried to pretend it was a protest as opposed to anarchists and agitators. You understand what I'm saying. It's a mess. They went there a short while ago, and they saved a federal courthouse that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And they put a ring around the courthouse, and they saved it. But the group that's there is basically meant to save buildings, and they were very strong, very powerful. And they didn't come out too often out of this cocoon that they built in order to save these very expensive, valuable, and psychologically important buildings, right? Like courthouses.
Psychologically? Oh, yeah, they look terribly violent.
The governor and the mayor, we've been dealing with them.
The fire extinguishers.
We think they don't know what they're doing, because this should not have been going on for 60 days. It's not our job, unless in case of emergency, which I consider now to be an emergency, it's not our job to go in and clean out the cities. It's supposed to be done by local law enforcement. Our people are staying there to see whether or not they can do it today and tomorrow. And if they don't do it, we will send in the National Guard and we'll take care of it. And we're telling right now these protesters, and many should be arrested, because these are professional agitators, these are professional anarchists, these are people that hate our country. We're telling them right now that we're coming in very soon. The National Guard, a lot of people, a lot of very tough people. And these are not people that just have to guard the courthouse and save it. These are people that are allowed to go forward and do what they have to do.
The president is threatening to kill his own citizens right there. When he says the National Guard are free to go forward and do what they have to do, the president of the United States is literally saying that he will allow the National Guard to kill Americans. He will order them to do it. Now, we all know the National Guard will not do it. But the protesters last night, they rallied near the courthouse last night, and in the absence of these federal camouflaged riot gear, military outfitted stormtroopers, it was peaceful all last night. Kate Brown, the governor of Oregon, said that Trump's troops were behaving like an occupying army in Portland. They were provoking all of this with very heavy-handed tactics. She when she agreed to Trump's deal that he would pull back these tactical units who are supposedly there to fight off drug cartels on the border. That's what their official job is. But this whole DHS thing that Bush invented, this whole extra agency that we never had before, that thing's got to go. Anyway, she put state troopers there last night, but she put them inside the courthouse, inside, unseen and inside the courthouse. No tension last night. Peaceful protesters, no tear gas, no grenades, no batons, no beating of Navy veterans, no beating of moms, no beating of dads with leaf blowers and fire extinguishers to put out fires. So, and by the way, when he sent those freaking stormtroopers in there were maybe a couple hundred protesters, not even. It was a Black Lives Matter protest, and there were a couple hundred people there. After he sent in those stormtroopers, the people of Portland, the moms of Portland, the dads of Portland, the teachers in Portland, they said no.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal. To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything. That's what's going to happen. Do I want to see a date change? No. But I don't want to see a crooked election.
There is no proof that mail-in voting leads to widespread fraud, and the Constitution only gives Congress the power to move Election Day. In a rare reproval, some of the president's top Republican allies on Capitol Hill dismissed his idea.
We'll cope with whatever the situation is and have the election on November 3rd as already scheduled.
No way should we ever not hold our election on the day that we have it.
Presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden had warned Trump could try to stall November's vote.
It's my greatest concern, my single greatest concern. This president's going to try to steal this election.
Yep.
This is the guy who said that all mail-in ballots are fraudulent.
Right.
Voting by mail.
Yeah.
While he sits behind the desk in Oval Office and writes his mail-in ballot to vote in the primary.
Earlier this month, Trump even hinted he may reject the election results.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no.
And while eulogizing voting rights champion Congressman John Lewis, President Obama rebuked efforts to discourage mail-in voting without naming Trump at all.
But even as we sit here, there are those in power who are doing their darndest to discourage people from voting by closing polling locations, even undermining the Postal Service in the run-up to an election that's going to be dependent on mail-in ballots so people don't get sick.
So this is the situation in which we find ourselves, and I just want you to understand that Donald Trump knows what you know, what I know, what everybody in this country knows, whether they admit it or not. People are living, breathing, therefore thinking, and they know that if the election was held today, Donald Trump is out. He's totally out, and Donald Trump cannot lose. Because if Donald Trump loses, Donald Trump will die in prison. Everybody knows it. He's already an unindicted co-conspirator in the Michael Cohen case. We have the tax return issue. That's also a state issue. So, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of reasons for Donald Trump to cling to power. Therefore, Donald Trump is going to run the same campaign that he ran the last time. Now, for those of you who don't remember what the campaign was the last time, I'm going to remind you that this was the last election.
This whole election is being rigged. That election is going to be rigged, and I hope the Republicans are watching closely, or it's going to be taken away from us. We have to make sure that this election is not stolen from us and is not taken away from us. Go and watch these polling places. I hear too many stories about Pennsylvania, certain areas, and we can't lose an election because of you know what I'm talking about. It looks to me like a rigged election. Well, it's rigged here too, believe me. So I just hope the Republicans are going to be very watchful. The election is being rigged. So it's a rigged election, but we're not going to let it happen. It's a rigged system. It's just terrible what's going on. The election is being rigged by corrupt media. The corrupt media is trying to do everything in their power to stop our movement. The crooked Hillary Clinton campaign and the mainstream media, which they control and use quite viciously. It's a rigged system. It's a rigged election. We're going to beat the rigged system. We're going to beat the rigged election.
Okay, you get the idea. So he's doing the same exact campaign now. Everything is going to be rigged. Yesterday, he was floating the idea of postponing the election, which he doesn't have the authority to do. The GOP weighed in. The GOP said, no, we're not going to delay.
We'll find a way to do that again this November 3rd.
So just to be clear, you are saying November 3rd set in stone?
That's right.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have soundly and squarely rejected the idea.
You can't move the election, and no president can do that. That's what dictators want to do.
No, we're not going to delay the election. It'll be a secure election.
Never in the history of the federal elections have we ever not held an election, and we should go forward with our election.
This is a conspiracy movement right now, basically trying to set up a web of if something doesn't go right, there's a reason for it. There's not a reason for it. We've been doing this type of voting for a long time. No one's ever questioned it before.
I mean, good grief, the president himself votes by mail.
Yeah, the president does vote by mail. And by the way, there is no difference between an absentee ballot and a mail-in ballot. They are exactly the same. And by the way, the only three states left where absentee ballots are reserved only for those who cite an approved reason, like they'll be away on election day, or they're serving on jury duty on election day, or they're disabled, or they're incarcerated, or they're too old. There's only 3 states left that require an excuse, and that's Mississippi, shocking, Missouri, and Texas. Everyone else, all the other states, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, Vermont, and Washington, all voters absolutely, automatically, and have for years, receive a ballot in the mail. And the postage is paid in those states on sending it back. In 40 other states, you have to mail in a request, but you don't have to give a reason. So that's 47 states I just covered. There's only 3 states that actually require you to state a reason why you're not voting in person. And that's Missouri, Mississippi, and Texas. And if COVID ain't a reason, I don't know what is. But anyway, that said, Donald Trump is literally doing the same damn thing he did last time. Now, we don't know if he would have, I don't know, litigated or I don't know what he would have done if Hillary actually prevailed. I mean, she lost by what, like 10,000 votes in Michigan, 22,000 votes in Pennsylvania. I mean, it was so close. But I don't know what he would. And then when he won, I kept saying to you, well, how is he going to say it's not rigged if he wins? And so the way he said it's not rigged after he won was he just dropped the subject. And now it's rearing its ugly little head with a very special focus on a power he didn't have as a candidate but does have as a president. And that is mail-in voting. That is the ballot itself. He is the president of the United States, and he did appoint a flunky, a donor with no experience in the Postal Service at all ever, a guy named Louis DeJoy. He took out our Postmaster General for some stupid and put in his flunky, Louis DeJoy. By the way, Louis DeJoy has given so much money to Donald Trump and so much money to the GOP that his wife is our ambassador to Canada. That's how much they bought of the swamp. They are, I mean, obviously, Donald Trump is the actual living, breathing swamp creature, and they're draining us. It's not the other way around. But anyway, so Mr. DeJoy has gone about doing a whole bunch of rigging inside the Postal Service. His wife, of course, is ambassador to Canada. I don't even think they let her in because, you know, they don't let Americans in. What a great job she did as our ambassador. You can't even go to Canada as an American because we are the unwashed COVID-diseased masses now, right? But anyway, he has put in a whole bunch of new policies like doing away with overtime, shutting down sorting machines, requiring letter carriers to not touch mail, to leave the mail behind. We had a call from Joyce in Wisconsin who saw ballots and Amazon packages being left. And she was told by her supervisor not to touch the ballots, not to touch the ballot application, not to touch the... And so I told her I would look into it. I've looked into it. It's bad.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
He can't do it, right? He cannot change the date of the election. However, he can do all sorts of other things around the margins that do affect them. I mean, here's a full screen of just some of them. Polling place closures and consolidations. We're seeing it. Reduced early voting and voting hours, provisional ballot requirements, changing them, voter roll purges, and then there's the whole issue of who he's put at the head of the Postal Service. One of his cronies, a fundraiser who has provided $2 million during the past 4 years, who is already slowing down service.
It's so important you mentioned that, Allison, because the larger picture is this. Because there is this desire for mail-in ballots because of the coronavirus pandemic, all these are stresses upon the system. And folks need to wake up to the fact that we're probably, barring a blowout, are not going to know who won the election night or election morning. It's going to take time to process these votes. That leaves open a major window for chaos, particularly if the president is the one stirring the pot. So we got to stay eagle-eyed on the functioning of the republic here, unfortunately against what seems to be the president's intentions. The Postal Service is such an important point that I don't think is getting enough attention yet.
All right, so let's give it some attention now, all right, the Postal Service. So the U.S. Postal Service is currently experiencing days-long backlogs of mail across the country. A top Trump donor, Louis DeJoy, who gave $2 million to Donald Trump's campaign, whose wife then purchased the ambassadorship to Canada. Great job, honey, because we can't get in there. Has just deployed new procedures and cost-cutting efforts, which are alarming mail carriers. It's alarming people who work in the Postal Service. We started getting phone calls last week and this week from postal workers saying, oh my God, the sorting machines are being shut down. Oh my God, we're being told that flats of ballots or ballot applications are not to be touched. They're just sitting there collecting dust. Why is that? Well, the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, has ended overtime pay so that, see, typically the instructions to people who work at your post office are don't leave the mail behind. However many hours you need to put in to get the mail where it's supposed to go, to sort the mail, to get the bins ready for delivery, do it, and you get paid. And it provides a very nice middle-class income for a lot of Americans, like about 200,000 of them. This guy has said, leave the mail, go home. He outlawed, literally, is prohibiting overtime pay. He has shut down the sorting machines. He is requiring, and this is where Joy's call came in, the letter carriers and the sorters to leave the mail, to leave the bins of mail that are ready for delivery sitting in the post offices. And some of them sit there because of scheduling and route changes. Even express mail, which you pay extra for, isn't making it on the promised date. And you're paying extra for express mail. Commerce pays extra, okay? I told you the Amazon account that the post office has is the most profitable thing that they have. He's trying to destroy the arrangement between the Postal Service and Amazon. And all that'll happen is, and you've already seen it, those Sprinter trucks that are all over your neighborhood now, the Amazon Sprinter trucks, that's all that will happen is the post office will be bled of that contract and Amazon will do it themselves. And so you will see people, losing their jobs at the Postal Service. But anyway, without the ability to work overtime, the logjam is getting worse. Right now, there is a 2-day delay in what we normally experience with mail delivery. Yesterday, the union, the Postal Service union, met with Louis DeJoy. The union representative, Mark Diamondstein, he's the president of the American Postal Workers Union. He represents about it's 200,000 people that work for the Postal Service, and they do a fabulous job. And everybody loves the mail. Everybody, I love the mail. So, this man, Mark Diamondstein, the president of the Postal Workers Union, met with Louis DeJoy yesterday, and the president of the union, Mark, walked out of that meeting and said he is deeply, deeply concerned about the changes this man made adding to the backlogs. And he said the most disturbing states he knows about with postal workers being instructed not to tend to the mail are Wisconsin, that's where Joyce called from, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. What do these all have in common? They're swing states. They're swing states where Donald Trump won, but is now losing. Big time losing. Bigly losing. And those states are being targeted because of the importance they have in this presidential election. In Michigan, you're going to have a primary next week, August 4th. The election administrators there said they have taken so many calls, complaints from voters, ordinary voters, who requested their ballots and haven't gotten them. And Donald Trump is litigating in 41 states, okay? He's got hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits in 41 states trying to change the rules for ballots that come by mail. And I told you only 3 states. There's only 3 states in this whole union where you need an excuse to vote by mail. 47 states, no excuse, voting by mail is needed. The election administrators in Michigan say the voters didn't get their ballots and that the voters who are complaining, had asked for their ballots weeks ago, and the ballots never arrived. And so now in Michigan, the election clerks are telling voters, so if this is you, to drop off their ballot on Tuesday. Don't send it back via mail because Donald Trump is changing the rules. The rule used to say your ballot had to be postmarked by Election Day. Donald Trump is litigating that the ballots have to be received by Election Day. Okay? 4 Senate Democrats wrote to Louis DeJoy yesterday, too, demanding information about the new procedures, which Louis DeJoy keeps saying it's just to make the post office more efficient. But the post office is already experiencing many days of delay. 2 days for express mail, 3 to 4 day delays for ballots and Amazon packages. They are cutting off the time in the morning for mail carriers to pick up items to deliver the same day. That's causing 3 to 4 day delays. The cardinal rule in the post office has always been, don't delay the mail.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Well, what I want to explain to people, but it doesn't need much explanation. I mean, you look at article after article, New York's mail vote disaster. Tens of thousands of mail ballots have been tossed out in this year's primaries. What will happen in November? It's a mess. This is done by Washington Post. Can you believe it? The Washington Post of all papers. Fake news, but in this case, it's not fake. It's true. You know, so many years I've been watching elections, and they say the projected winner or the winner of the election. I don't want to see that take place in a week after November 3rd or a month or, frankly, with litigation and everything else that can happen, years. Or you never even know who won the election.
What?
You're sending out hundreds of millions of universal mail-in ballots. Hundreds of millions. Where are they going? Who are they being sent to? It's common sense. You don't have to know anything about politics. And the Democrats know this. The Democrats know this, Steve. I want to have the result of the election. I don't want to be waiting around for weeks and months and literally, potentially, if you really did it right, years, because you'll never know.
Years.
These ballots are missing. You saw Paterson, New Jersey. You saw many other instances. There's tremendous litigation on that right now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include absentee. Absentee is different. Absentee, you have
not
to
different.
Work, and you have to send in for applications. You have to go through a whole procedure.
Oh,
like,
my
for instance,
God.
I'm an absentee voter because I can't be in Florida because I'm in Washington. I'm at the White House. So
Oh, my God.
I'll be an absentee voter. We have a lot of absentee voters, and it works. So we're in favor of absentee, but it's much different than millions of people. In California, they're going to send out tens of millions of voting forms.
Which
Well,
they
where are
always
gonna go?
do.
You read where postmen are in big trouble now? You read where city councils are in big trouble now? Voter fraud all over the ballots. So, no, I want to be standing, hopefully, hand held high, big victory, because we're doing things with our country that I think nobody else could have done. Our country is, despite this pandemic, which is devastating the rest of the world, by the way, devastating.
What?
Oh, for God's sake. say.
I do agree with him on one thing, Randy. He's definitely doing things that nobody else would ever do.
Yeah, like crashing the economy, like not responding to a pandemic, like lying every time his pie hole is open. Okay, so here's the thing. The Washington Post article that he's talking about in that particular clip is in the homework at randyrhodes.com. You can click on homework on the top or randyrhodes.com/homework, okay? And you'll see the Washington Post article. What the Washington Post article was talking about was ballots that were thrown out because they were delayed at the post office and they didn't make it in time to be counted. That's what happened in Wisconsin. You had 2,659 ballots that were returned after the deadline for the spring primary on April 13th, and they were not counted because they arrived late. They arrived late because of the delays that have been instituted in the Postal Service by design by Louis DeJoy. In California, there were 70,330 ballots that were disqualified because they missed the deadline. Ballots are typically sorted by hand and prioritized by postal workers, so it's a sure thing that they are delivered on time. But this year, Louis DeJoy has instructed the postal workers to not touch the ballots, to turn off the sorting machines and sort normal regular mail by hand, leaving the ballots to sit there. You see what the problem is? So, if you are a postal worker like our friend Joyce, here is the number for the union. That is who you call. I told you 4 Democratic congressmen met with Louis DeJoy yesterday. The union, the postal worker president, the president of the Postal Workers Union met with Louis DeJoy yesterday. They are all just freaked out by what this man is causing, what he is doing by turning off these sorting machines, okay? By instructing mail carriers to leave mail in bins, by cutting off the time to pick up mail in the morning for delivery the same day, by not prioritizing priority mail, slowing down the Postal Service, some places by weeks, literally by weeks. So here is the number, and this is for postal workers who see something. Like Joyce, if you see something, say something. The union contact information is area code 202-842-4250. 202-842-4250. Joyce, call the union. Call the union. The agency is literally slowing down the mail. That is what, and the litigation, oh my God, Donald Trump has filed 150 lawsuits in 41 states over voting by mail this year. The NAACP, the League of Women Voters, they are all responding to these lawsuits. There are lawsuits in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, all the swing states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all of them. And he is attacking your right to vote by mail. And like I said, there's only 3 states in this entire country where you need to explain yourself if you are asking to vote by mail. 40 states ask you to send in an application for a ballot. The rest don't. You could just, and Oregon's been voting by mail for years. Washington State's voting by, Hawaii votes by mail. California votes by mail. All of a sudden, the president is making this like some new thing. It's not a new thing. This is the way many millions of Americans have always voted. I'm an in-person voter. I like to vote in person. I like to check out what's going on that day. I want to see the lines. I want to see if there's any, disenfranchisement. If they, like when I go to my polling place, how many machines are there? How many polling places are there? In these primaries, we saw states where there used to be 800 polling places reduced to 2. We saw people making a mad dash for this one convention center. That was the only polling place for an entire county. And they closed it early. Remember? And people were banging on the window to let them in, and they had to file a lawsuit, and they said if they were there, they get to vote. That's the deal. That's the deal. Because the last time he said the election was rigged, he didn't have any power. And the election was being rigged, which is what, because he projects, right? It was being rigged, but it was being rigged online by Russia, by disinformation, by insinuating Hillary was a pedophile, and guys literally got their guns and drove to Comet Pizza Parlor and Ping Pong to shoot the place up because they thought she was running a pedophile ring out of the basement of a pizza parlor. That was a disinformation. Now he's got power.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Go ahead, Billy. Let's vote. Where are we going? Okay.
There's no line at all here.
126. Oh, why? Do I have to go to a different place, actually? Yeah.
He got rejected at that poll. It was a registration issue.
They don't have it here either. You believe this?
They don't have it in this book. He's not in my book either.
Hi, fellas. How are you? You have my name here? I'm going to fill out the absentee ballot. You didn't do right by me. You didn't do right by me, man. You know that, right? I know. You know that.
Okay, back to the task at hand, completing a provisional ballot.
I've just voted.
Huh. Oh! The man did not even know where he was supposed to vote. He was not registered to vote. Not registered to vote. And he's going to preach to you about mail-in balloting or absentee balloting, listen, he's such a liar. It's so amazing how often and how hard he cons people into believing that he knows the right way. He knows the best way. He knows the best people. He knows how to run in a cut. The man bankrupted everything he ever touched, and now he's doing it to us and our country. He is lazy. He is stupid. He doesn't know how to vote. And he got caught on the camera. That was, Billy Bush. That was Access Hollywood. It's all he knew how to do was get his face on the freaking infotainment shows. That's what the man was good at. He's not good at anything. But I got to show you something. This has got to be the most, I don't know what to call it. It was the most bizarre TV I ever saw. And that's saying a lot because, I have to watch that faux news. I have to watch that. Fox News, one vowel movement away from what it does to the news. You do the math, okay? But this had to be the ugliest thing I ever saw that miscreant, that subversive Tucker Carlson ever do. This was the weirdest television.
Barack Obama showed up at a funeral today, John Lewis's funeral, to give a eulogy, but he didn't do that. Instead, he gave a grubby and dishonest political speech.
Grubby.
That went on and on, a vicious one, too. Here's Obama extolling the virtues of mail-in voting.
Even as we sit here, there are those in power who are doing their darndest to discourage people from voting by closing polling locations and targeting minorities and students with restrictive ID laws and attacking our voting rights with surgical precision, even undermining the Postal Service in the run-up to an election that's going to be dependent on mail-in ballots so people don't get sick.
Yeah, targeting minorities. That's a lie. That's a flat-out lie. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. And in the middle of racial turmoil, here's a former president stoking the fire for political reasons. It's disgusting.
Okay, so we all know that minority voting polling places have been shut down because there's no pre-clearance required ever since they struck down the Voting Rights Act, saying racism was over. And as soon as the Voting Rights Act was struck down and there was no pre-clearance, meaning if you were going to take the number of polling places from 800 down to 2, you had to tell the federal government you were doing that and give them a reason why before you went ahead and disenfranchised all those people. Now they don't have to do it, and so that's exactly what they did. You had one polling place, a convention center a convention center where you used to have 80 polling places, okay? Also, as far as voter ID goes, this is so bizarre. If you have an NRA card, that is considered legitimate photo ID. But if you have a student ID, not considered photo ID. Don't you see? I mean, listen. So anyway, it was the ugliest TV I ever saw.
Now, Barack Obama, one of the sleaziest and most dishonest figures in the history of American politics, used George Floyd's death at a funeral to attack the police. Here's what he said.
Bull Connor may be gone, but today we witness with our own eyes police officers kneeling on the necks of black Americans.
Bull Connor?
Yeah, Bull Connor.
The country falling apart, riven by racial strife and tribalism. And one of the most respected people in the whole country decides to pour gasoline on that and compare the police to Bull Connor? As if America or Minneapolis is like Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. It's insane. It's reckless. But of course, Obama doesn't care. It's only about November and the coming election.
Wow, so this is amazing. John Lewis, who was the voting rights saint, the patron saint of voting rights in America. John Lewis, who was beaten almost to death multiple times to secure voting rights in this country for all Americans. Okay, John Lewis was eulogized by the first African-American president in a time when voting rights are being decimated. And Tucker Carlson calls Barack Obama one of the sleaziest and most dishonest figures in the history of American politics. At a voting rights activist's funeral, what else would you talk about? I just don't know. And Donald Trump, who was the only president who did not attend, except for Jimmy Carter, who's 95 and couldn't attend. Donald Trump didn't attend because he's 4 years old. And he's holding a grudge against John Lewis. He doesn't like John Lewis, so he doesn't go to his funeral. So instead, he starts tweeting out about postponing the entire election during the funeral. But Obama's sleazy. Obama's grubby. It was the weirdest television I think I ever saw. Just for compares, for craps and giggles, let's just do a side-by-side of Barack Obama advocating for voting rights and Donald Trump saying you shouldn't be able to vote.
There are those in power who are doing their darndest to discourage people from voting.
These elections will be fraudulent. They'll be fixed. They'll be rigged.
Closing polling locations and targeting minorities and students with restrictive ID laws.
So we want to have an election. I'd love to see voter ID.
Attacking our voting rights with surgical precision, even undermining the Postal Service in the run-up to an election that's going to be dependent on mail-in ballots.
But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything.
We can witness our federal government sending agents to use tear gas and batons.
We're telling them right now that we're coming in very soon. The National Guard, a lot of people, a lot of very tough people.
That's where real courage comes from. Not from turning on each other, but by turning towards one another. Not by sowing hatred and division, but by spreading love and truth.
And we're telling right now these protesters, and many should be arrested, because these are professional agitators, these are professional anarchists, these are people that hate our country.
Oh my God. So he's come up with a plan to destroy the election itself. And I don't know why he couldn't destroy the election itself without destroying my beloved Postal Service on top of it. So now we're going to in his world. We would live without democracy and mail. He's a wackadoo. He's a con man, and there are people that still, will listen. It's just so sad. Maryland and Tennessee. May I help you?
Yes, I just wanted to speak because teachers are not calling in. People that work in the school are not calling in. And I'm a cafeteria monitor. I'm the lunch lady.
Oh, hi, lunch lady.
and they're sending us into school. School is opening here in Tennessee, in my county, August 3rd.
Right.
Monday.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. We now know that children over 10 have the same capability of spreading this virus as adults, right? We know that now. And so lunch ladies and bus drivers, superintendents, teachers' aides, school nurses, not safe. Also, kids who live with grandma, not a good idea. Not a good idea. Like I said, my mom's birthday is next Friday, and she'll be 90.